Investigators still have nearly an impossible job ahead of them trying to solve this mysterious Burning Man case. However, they're no longer in the dark. At the very least, now they're working with something. In fact, they're working with more than I thought they would be working with at this point. Because, no thanks to the people at Burning Man, they finally were able to identify the victim by his fingerprints. But also, they have recovered a cell phone that they believe may possibly, we don't know yet, but it may possibly be linked to the suspect. They have also found a blade that they think, we don't know for sure yet, they think it may be linked to the suspect. They think that it may be used in this crime, taking Vadim Kroglov's life. So they're working with something here. They're no longer completely in the dark like they were for a few days there. But there's still another huge problem, folks. Even if, by the graces of God, even if they're able to figure out who the suspect is, the question is, will they be able to track him or her down? Will they be able to find the suspect? Because the suspect has a head start here. And the people, and I've mentioned this multiple times, the people at Burning Man are here from all over the world. People have already left Burning Man. They have departed the country. They have dispersed to over 72 different countries. We have a situation here where, yeah, they may figure out who done it, but are they going to be able to catch who done it? Are they going to travel to the far ends of the earth to track this guy down and bring him in? Will they be able to cooperate with law enforcement from different countries trying to bring this guy in? Will they even go through the effort? I don't know. But that's a strong possibility here. However, there's another detail that sticks out to me. Because some people at Burning Man, some witnesses say they saw this strange man acting unhinged, mentioning that he needed to clean blood out of his RV. Now, a lot of crazy things happen at Burning Man. This could be literally anyone. This might not be related to what happened at all. But when you have an investigation like this one, you got to take these little hints. You got to take these little clues, these tips. You got to take everything someone says and you got to explore it. So one thing I know law enforcement wants to do, they want to narrow down their pool of potential suspects. And right now, that pool of suspects is very big. It's like 70 or 80,000 people big. But the fact that this unhinged man mentioned that he wanted to clean blood out of his RV, what does that let us know? Okay, maybe if that guy is the suspect, at the very least, he says he has an RV. Not everyone at Burning Man is there in an RV. There are a lot of RVs out there. But, like I said, in a difficult investigation like this, you got to take what you can get and you got to work with it. So this may be a way that investigators can narrow down their pool. All right, we're looking at 80,000 people. Now we're only looking at the 17,000 people that came in an RV. You know what I mean? So maybe they can narrow down their pool of suspects down to whoever came in an RV. Maybe there will be video footage of these RVs coming in. There will be some sort of registry possibly. So that right there also gives law enforcement something to work with. But they were discussing this case briefly on the news earlier. They had a retired NYPD person on there talking about this case. I want to go ahead and roll that clip really quickly. Before I do, though, make sure you guys like this video. Make sure you share the video. Make sure you drop a comment. And if you want to donate, you could donate via Cash App or Super Thanks. But I'm going to roll this news clip, and then I'll be right back with more thoughts of my own as well.
The grieving father of a Russian national who was found dead in a pool of blood at the Burning Man festival is speaking out. Vadim Kurgalov's father, Igor, says words can't express his anguish and goes on to say, "The world is often unfair, but as a peaceful man, I seek justice. I want those responsible to face consequences." So let's bring in Paul Morrow, Fox News contributor and retired NYPD inspector. Paul, thanks for taking time. You're actually out at the Crime Con in Denver, and I want to get to that. But this story is really interesting because this murder appears to have taken place at a concert that's every year built up kind of like a city, making it challenging. America Reports just a couple of days ago had a forensic scholar on talking a little bit about the challenges of this investigation. Here's what he had to say.
The ultimate nightmare scenario. You can't think of this as like a town, where you have gridded streets even. You work an outdoor scene, perhaps. You have an address that is a reference point. That doesn't even exist here. You've got this mass of humanity crawling on top of one another in there. Can you imagine how many people have stepped over this area?
Paul, what are your thoughts?
Well, he's absolutely right. This is going to be a particularly challenging case when you consider that you're investigating a murder inside of a city that doesn't exist anymore. The whole thing has been broken down. The other real challenge here, undeniably, is going to be resources for the investigatory agency. In this case, the Pershing County Sheriff's Office has caught the case. Now, understand, Burning Man imports 70 to 80,000 people at a time each year for that event. The entire county, without that influx of people, has about 6,600 people year-round. So the sheriff's office probably has personnel maybe into double figures, maybe a dozen, maybe a dozen and a half. The point is they're not going to have a lot of resources to devote to this, and this becomes a case that maybe even has an international piece because he's a Russian national. I'm actually surprised that they were even able to match the fingerprints. That suggests to me that he was probably going through the immigration process and had his prints taken, and they had his prints on file. But very clearly a unique circumstance, and they're going to need all the help they can get.
Well, and Paul, it's interesting. I was reading the Daily Mail had talked to some festival goers who seemed to have reported seeing an unhinged man claiming he had a knife. One report that he had been cleaning possibly blood in his RV. But sort of to your point about the difficulty of the investigation, these people are gone. They're not there. It's not like you just show up to their address. You have to track them down. It seems that makes it harder.
Yeah, exactly. And, when you consider the fact that all those people now have gone mobile, the place doesn't exist anymore, you're going to have to say to yourself, okay, where do we start? Well, if you have nothing more to go on than the idea that, okay, I saw a guy who was talking about maybe he had a knife. How are you going to identify this guy? Is there license plate readers that captured cars coming in? There's some reporting that the person of interest that you're referring to might have talked about having an RV. Are the license plates of all the RVs caught? The people have to register to come to this thing. So, there's going to be some registry that they can access. But you talk about 80,000 people. Very, very tough case. My heart goes out to them. I'm sure they're doing their best. But this is very challenging.
The lack of resources is something that I hadn't even gotten a chance to get around to thinking about yet. But he is absolutely correct. That's going to make the case even harder. And this is shaping out to be, at least from what I've seen, one of the craziest, most unique, difficult investigations I can think of. If you can think of one that is weirder or crazier than this, let me know down in the comments below. This has to be one of the most unique murder investigations that I've seen since I've started doing this. But I will say this, because I don't want to end on a negative note here, because even though this is a negative situation, obviously someone lost their lives, for the first time in this story, I'm starting to have hope. Up until now, up until the info that was released today, I was hopeless when it comes to this story. I did not think that they were going to be able to solve this or catch who did this. But hearing what we've heard today, possibly a cell phone that could belong to the suspect. They got a blade. Hell, they're working with something here. They got more than I expected, more than I suspected, and they got some key pieces to the puzzle. They don't got all the pieces, but they got some key pieces to this puzzle. And like I said, that's more than I thought they had, and that's definitely going to help them figuring out who did this. But as I stated earlier, figuring out who did this is kind of just the beginning. Because then you got to figure out where in the hell this person is. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? That's basically what the next phase, our chapter of this story will be, if they're even able to figure out who done it. But like I said, things are starting to look up. I'm starting to get more of a positive feeling about this case, because what seemed to be impossible is looking more and more plausible, at least for right now. But you guys let me know what you think down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all very soon in the next one.